Oh, johnmrudy asks, have I found myself making differently since watching YouTube? I mean, of course. If anything, I make more ambitiously because YouTube is the place I go to watch other people do things that I think are impossible and realize that they're not. That's absolutely true. So I remember being at ILM in 1999, and I needed to make an acrylic box, and I was thinking to myself, man, it's so hard to make good seams on an acrylic box. I wish I could do it like they do at Tap Plastics. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute. Tap Plastics has a robust system, but it's not like anyone I met there is a master maker. And I don't mean to insult them. I didn't think that they were lower intelligence or anything. I was just thinking that the people that populate Tap Plastics are people they hire and train how to use the equipment to do things. So clearly Tap Plastics had turned building a box from a employee-specific skill into a process that the machine that was the store could do. And I thought, okay, that means the quality of the box is uncoupled from my talent at potentially at acrylic and plexiglass manufacturing. So I called up the Tap Plastics in San Rafael, and they let me come in for an afternoon and watch them make boxes. And I understood, I learned exactly what their process is. Here's what I remember. All of the edges are router cut for smoothness and straightness. The router bits they use for all their cutting have 1/2-inch shanks, not 1/4-inch shanks, because the 1/2-inch shank act as a heat sink, pulling heat away from the cut, keeping the acrylic from melting. They do their glue up on a foam pad using toothpicks to get everything aligned correctly. The actual PSI of the weld bond glue, the correct PSI, is not like a pressure, it's 1 PSI. So Tap has this method of using a foam base with popsicle sticks and toothpicks to kind of align everything. And yeah, it's a nice, robust system. And I still hire Tap Plastics to build my boxes for me. I can't even remember what the original question was. Oh, right. Have I found myself making differently since watching YouTube? Yeah. So every time I have reached out to a maker and asked to watch their process, they have been totally gracious in allowing that. And I feel like YouTube is like everybody opening their front doors. It's the best. So yeah, I am totally I was a certain kind of machinist at the end of 20 years in the film industry. I really think I'm twice as good a machinist now as I was back then. And that's largely because of the places I've pushed myself here on the channel, building my Samaritan and some other excursions. And then also just from watching other people try stuff. People like this old Tony, Stefan Gottsventer, ClickSpring, Chronova Engineering. There's so many others. Action Lab. I mean, you know, everybody. I'm very excited because this weekend is Open Sauce in San Francisco. Open Sauce is a YouTube creator maker fair, effectively. And we host an open house every year. And I get to see many of my favorite YouTubers that I only get to see once a year. I get to meet many of my favorite YouTubers in my cave, which is really exciting. Last year I was like, oh, Grady Hillhouse from Practical Engineering. And I yelled so loud, I think I gave him a start. Grady is lovely. I'm addicted to his channel. So I'm just very excited about all of the all my YouTuber friends who are coming. Yeah, YouTube has completely changed the way I make stuff. And it's changed the way I talk about making stuff. Oh, and here is a question I wanted to answer. Casey, 1960, says, you make a point of leaving mistakes in your videos. Have you always been comfortable doing this, or is it something you learned to embrace, and if so, why? It's always been something I've embraced. I feel like my understanding of this relationship, of me to the camera, and by extension to you, wherever you are, whoever you are, watching in all the different modalities that all of you are watching in. I've always been clear that the success of this kind of relationship between a performer and an audience, I've always been clear that the success of that relationship is predicated on honesty. And maybe that's from the early acting training I had, where I could see how hard it was for me to get to that, and maybe it's why I stopped acting as a profession. But there's always been a part of me that understood that in any artistic endeavor, being completely radically open and honest about all of your own failings is the only way to achieve anything useful as a person, as an artist, as an aesthetic adventurer. And I'm really trying to think about where that originated from, because I remember early on in a show that I was making, one of my co-hosts asked to change a shot in the rough cut, because in the shot they were clearly really pissed off and they didn't like that. It's totally understandable. I have asked editorial to remove a shot purely for my own vanity, because I didn't like the way my stomach looked in this dumb shot. Yeah, I did. I asked that. That was once. But this co-host of mine asked them to change this editorial because they were mad. They didn't like that they showed up being mad. And I had an issue with that. And my issue just was totally personal. And I pulled that co-host aside and I said, I think this is, sorry, I didn't mean to hit my microphone. I said, I think this is a poor decision. I feel like our relationship with the audience is predicated on honesty. And I would counsel you to let this stay in and let your lumps be seen. Oh my God, that's right. And they disagreed, which is totally fine. I didn't require them to agree with me at the end of our conversation. It wasn't necessary. But I think that was the wrong call. And so Mary Karr wrote an amazing memoir called Liars Club. And I understand from a interview she gave that when she was writing Liars Club, she was corresponding with Tobias Wolff, another writer of memoir. And Tobias Wolff counseled her, if you're going to write about yourself as a child, I've totally told this story in a live stream before, now I realize. Tobias Wolff counseled Mary Karr, if you're going to write about yourself as a child, don't make the mistake of trying to make yourself a better person than you were as that child. Like, make yourself as crappy and as venal and as jealous as you were, and write about those experiences honestly. And the way he phrased it was, take no cure for your dignity. I'm like, that rhetorical flourish has sat with me, goosebumps, since I read it. Take no cure for your dignity. I believe that, like, I want that on my tombstone, because every time I have butt up against like the way I think the world should be, when I got really upset and took it personally, I was trying to do that. I was trying to take a cure for my dignity. I wasn't willing to admit my idiocy. And so I think it is incumbent on an artist who's communicating about their work. Not everyone wants to, and that is also completely fine. But if you are going to communicate about your work, to me, it is not about being a certain kind of a personality. It is about really being yourself as truthfully as you can be, with all of your lumps and all of your venality and jealousy and all of the stuff that goes on in your own head. So I view the idea of having a platform as like a completely temporary situation based on the lottery of where culture is, where my mind is, where I am in my life. And I'm really grateful to have this relationship right now and this platform and this conversation with you guys. I can't even tell you how many times a day I feel grateful for it. And in that gratitude, I view that it's incumbent on me to be honest about my experience, lest anything I've gone through is useful to anybody watching. Because we all need help. It really helps when someone says, I went through that too. That is really hard. It's as hard as you think it is. Actually, it's harder than you think it is. Oh my gosh. Every now and then at a con, I'd love talking about this, but like young people bring me costumes that they make. Somebody asked, do I like it when I love it when they bring me stuff that they made. And specifically, I can see so much about someone looking at something they made. And one of my favorites, this is something to watch out for, is when they've got a piece of fabric on their costume and then they've got a piece of hard plastic and they're the exact same color. And that's not easy. That's harder than you think. And there are so many young people that nail this and don't know how complicated that can be. So I love letting them know. Again, yeah, the more we share our experiences and benefit others about what it's like to be a person, the better we all do. We're all paddling in the same boats. Yeah, I love that. Azarath Gaming says, I've been going through a really tough time the last few weeks, and I started watching Mythbusters. Thank you for helping me get through a really rough period in my life. Azarath Gaming, I really appreciate that. I'm sorry you're going through a rough period. And I'm really glad that the show we made is providing some succor, some oasis in that. I hear this a lot. Among the things I hear that I'm so grateful to hear, like I watched the show with my dad or my parents, we watched the show as a family. I hear people's, it got me through science class. I'm an engineer because of watching you, Cary Grant, Tori, and Jamie go, and like all of those things. And also, and I got a lot of this in Australia when I was there a couple of weeks ago, on people saying that the show's consistency was really soothing. And I so appreciate that. It was for us too. That oscillation, to spend that much time with a group of people where you're coming up every morning with weird stuff to do. Again, it was the hardest job I'll ever have and also one of the best, just like anything you do with that. But I really appreciate that the show we had so much fun making provides succor in difficult times. I'm not sure exactly what it is, except that, we're just doing the same thing every time. And also, yeah, okay, I'll say this. I feel like we were being honest about how we were making the show. We put all the mistakes in from the very beginning. And that wasn't solely my idea, by the way. That really was an ethos that grew out of the way Jamie and I like to work. Neither of us minded being fools. Okay, I think Jamie has a little tougher time being a fool than I do. But specifically, neither of us really cared that the camera was there. And the same thing with the other hosts, man. Azarath Gaming, I hope that the time you're going through passes and that you'll be able to enjoy Mythbusters without it being a succor against the slings and arrows of your life. Want to ask me a question during a live stream? Become a tested member by clicking the join link right around there somewhere.